Hello there. If you are here to know about the ISO 9001 standard and how to get your organization certified, I'll be covering this topic in three key domains. First of all, I'm going to discuss briefly what is ISO 9001 is all about, and then how to implement this standard at your organization, what are the key steps, and then when to contact the certification body and how to get yourself certified and what is the process. So I'll be covering all these three domains briefly. And just a brief about myself. So my name is Syed Arshad Hashmi. By profession, I'm an engineer with 30 years of experience into this field of international standards and certifications. I've done a number of consulting projects, and I've audited and provided training to a number of organizations. So that is a brief about myself. And now let's dive into the topic. So before I take you to the ISO 9001 standard, let's first understand a term, which is what is a standard? How do you define a standard? So, in order for you to understand, and if you may think about what is a standard, then you can think of any product or any service, even. And just for the sake of simplicity, let's think of um, a product as a bottle. And if I ask you that, what are the standards related to it? So, you may come up with the height of the bottle, the diameter of the bottle, the color of the bottle, thickness, and the water contents that are inside this bottle. Now, this parameters that you just thought of regarding this product is called a product standard. So that's how we define any product standard. For that matter, it can be your iPhone, it can be your any other car or anything, any service that you may have. You define the parameters, and those are called as product standards. So that is how we define the product standard. Now, in order to develop this product, we need to define a process that can be your raw material, what type of raw material you may acquire, what type of process you may have, what type of quality control checks you may have, and what type of warehousing or inventory or delivery you may have. So you define your process in order to make this one particular product. And this defining the process is called the process standard. So when you define different parameters at how this process will work in order to develop this one particular product, that is called a process standard. And the relationship between both the standard is that a standardized process ensures a standard product. So you need to understand that if you want to make millions of those product or those bottles in a day, you need to standardize your process so that you can acquire these bottles without any deviation. And this is the area where the ISO 9001 comes. And ISO 9001 defines the process, that how to standardize any process as per the international best practices in the world, so that when you develop and when you work, you will make the product right the first time and every time you do it. So that's the overall intent of the ISO 9001 standard. And the way we define it is that it standardizes your process system to produce a standard products. So ISO 9001 is not a product standard, it's a process standard, it's a system standard. And the concept is that in order for you to standardize your product development, you need to standardize your processes and be able to repeat it so that you can acquire this product with consistency. So that's the overall concept about the ISO 9001, and that's how it helps the organization to ensure the quality of product and services. Now, with that, let me touch base on the second topic, that how the organizations need to acquire. So a little bit about the 9001 is that there are requirements laid down for your production department, for your sales department, for your product procurement department, quality control department on functions and activities, and your top management and your competency and training. So there are a number of requirements which are laid down in the ISO 9001 standard, and a company needs to implement those requirements before calling a certification body. So the implementation process mainly comprises of certain key steps. The first of one is called gap analysis. So any organization that is seeking to acquire the 9001 certification or to implement the 9001 certification, they need to evaluate their current processes and systems against the requirements. So whatever the requirements of the standard are, they need to understand how much is the gap between the current practices and the practices required by the international standard. And then they provide training, the companies acquire training to the employees who will be act as a focal person to implement this 9001 standard. So this gap analysis that you perform at the first level, that basically is also a project plan for your organization, that these are the gaps which we need to fill out. Once the domain knowledge or the awareness knowledge about the standard is acquired, then that team or the focal persons, that they can work in coordination with other functions and departments and start developing the policies and the procedures as required by the standard. And they start complying with the requirements of the standard and generating the records as per the requirement of the standard. So the number of documents, again, depends upon the nature of the business that you are in and the size of the organization. But and a standard provides a lot of guidance on that. So once you have developed those basic documentation and policies and procedures, then you start training the whole organization on the respective policies and procedures. So most of the time they are working previously on some of their own procedures, which may be now mapped on the 9001 standard requirements. So what they will do is that they will so the training sessions goes on in the organization, that this is how the work needs to be done now, with whatever the controls and whatever the requirements from the standard that has been incorporated into the policies and the procedures and the processes of the organization. And that's how they need to work. So they will all understand those changes in the processes, and those new processes that may be incorporated, like for example, if the company may not have been doing the internal auditing or management reviews, which are some of the key processes required by the ISO 9001. So they will get the awareness about those processes and systems, and then they will start working on that, and then they will start generating records. So the time to contact the certification body is the time when internally you develop the systems, and then you internally perform a one internal audit. So this is the requirement of the ISO 9001 standard, that you need to internally check your organization if the company is complying with the requirements of the standard, plus the company is complying with the company's own defined policies and procedures, which are all part of the quality management system. So if the people are following the standard on the ground, that is need to be checked by the internal auditors. So the company do an internal audit, and then they need to do a management review. That those are the key points in the implementation process that gives you the point or the milestone that this is time to contact the certification body. The certification body is the ISO issuing certificate authority, and there are a number of certification bodies present globally, and they also follow certain guidelines to provide this certification services, and they are also audited by accreditation boards, to which I would not go into the detail of that at this point. So so the organization who's looking for the certification, they will contact the certification bodies, and these certification body are also called the registration body. So the certification and the word registration is used interchangeably as far as ISO certification is concerned. They are also called registration bodies. They are also called registrars as well. So the organization contact the certification body, and the certification body, depending upon the size, depending upon the scope of your certification, depending upon the number of sites that you are considering and the complexity of the operation, the risk is involved, they will provide you a commercial code. A commercial code really depends upon the geography, in which geography you are in. But the basic rule through which the commercial code is provided, that these certification bodies, when they are calculating that how many auditors they need to send on site to audit your organization against the 9001 requirement, based on that they will do certain calculations, which are in terms of number of man days. So how many man for how many days they are going to send at your organization and perform these audits. So one of the key information is that when these certification bodies provide you the code, they will provide you a quote for 3 years. Since the certification is valid for 3 years, and during that 3 year cycle, normally it's a two surveillance audit every 12 months, and after the two surveillance audits, the third year will be followed by a recertification audit, which will let the certification body issue another certificate, which is valid for another 3 years. So they will provide you a quote for the whole 3 years, but they will charge you as the audit will proceed. So the initial audit, which is called the certification audit, comprises of two stages. One is called the stage one audit, and the other one is the stage two audit. Stage one audit, the auditor may come and they will audit your documentation. They will not verify the implementation. They will just go through the documentation. And once they find that their documentation is aligned with the requirements of the standard, or they may give you their area of concerns, which you need to address before calling them for the certification audit, which is the stage two audit. Now, stage two audit is called the implementation audit. In the implementation audit, the certification body auditors, they come and they verify the implementation of those policies and procedures and the quality management system requirement throughout the organization. They meet the whole organization, of course, on based on sampling, and then based on their evaluation and judgment, they will either certify you or they will announce the certification, or in case of major nonconformities, they will ask you to resolve the major nonconformities before they recommend your company for certification. So and then it is once you are certified, the certificate will be valid for 3 years, followed by two surveillance audits, and then the third year will be for a recertification audit, and the cycle will go on. So that was a brief about the whole ISO 9001 basics, and what are the key steps towards its implementation, and what is the certification process. And if you may have any further questions, you can put down in the comment area. And hopefully, in my next video, I may dive deep into the certain aspects of the 9001 standard, how the requirements are laid down, what exactly an organization needs to do, and how to implement those requirements of the standard. What are the primary requirements? What are the secondary requirements that you should be addressing that will help your organization to acquire the certification? So, thank you so very much, and hopefully, I'll see you till I upload my next video. Thank you.